As a senior research PhD at the Federal Weapons Research Institute, Qi Xiu lived in a routine for many years until one day, she seemed to be able to awaken and glimpse the uniqueness of this world. She wanted to find the secrets of the world, but was at a loss. Just as she was about to lose confidence, a group of outsiders who called themselves players appeared and referred to the world she lived in as the cyber game world. Players are inexplicably trapped in the world of cyber games, with eerie systems issuing mandatory death missions at any time. They are also hunted down by several major organizations due to their unknown origins, captured, and sent to research institutes. They are in a dangerous situation with a tragic ending. Just as they were struggling to survive and struggling, a few people appeared that made everyone anxious, adding insult to injury. Win for wealth, harm Preda, seek skin with a tiger, and kill like a horse. The four major tumors and threats from several major organizations in the world of cyber games almost put players at risk, forcing them to cling to the mysterious science popularization expert 820 and several other active and famous players on the system forum, seeking refuge. They thought they had finally found psychological support. Until one day, the nickname of the 820 tycoon they trusted was followed by the three words, Predator, in black and gold. 820, it's all me. Several famous players. Things are done together. Players. Stop playing, let's just die. What is the end of the cyber world and what is the truth about this world? Qi Xiu wanted to destroy the eerie game system, but had no thoughts at all. She has a bold idea. Will the few worlds they know be controlled by the gods, or in other words, these worlds are also created? Keywords of the novel. After awakening, I was deified without pop-ups in the cyber game. After awakening, I was deified in the cyber game to download the complete TXT collection. After awakening, I was deified in the cyber game to read the latest chapters. Chapter 1. Mechanical Fall 1 Fiction. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Mechanical Fall 1 Fiction. A soon-to-be-launched Cyber Series holographic game, Cyber. Mechanical Fallen City will undergo the first batch of internal testing through live streaming. The first internal test randomly selected 100,000 people in the comments section of the official website, and gave away various game equipment and nutrition pods for free. Darkness descended, enveloping the prosperous city. But the city at night is not considered dark, with towering modern buildings towering into the clouds. Colorful neon lights, mainly blue, red, and purple, flicker on the faces of pedestrians walking in the rain. Pedestrians are holding umbrellas to avoid the endless rain. Some people are wearing professional suits and carrying briefcases in a hurry, while others are walking slowly and casually, their faces numb, and their metallic luster can be seen when they casually lift their hands. Some people even modified their eyeballs, and mechanical prosthetic eyes reflect a light blue glow at night. A person is wearing a loose hoodie and a hoodie cap. With a duckbill cap, they raise their hand and pull the hoodie cap down. Passing by countless people, I slowly walked into the dim alley. Walk straight towards the end of the alley. Arriving at a somewhat dilapidated residential building, the person stopped and looked up, revealing a beautiful woman's face beneath her hoodie and duckbill hat. Quickly click on the system taskbar. Task 5 of Group 2. Assassination of Federal Weapon Manufacturing Doctor, she murmured to herself, there's only one more left to complete this set of tasks, and there will be an additional 10,000 points reward. Is it just that this doctor seems unarmed and needs her to assassinate? Forget it, don't give away the points that were given away for free. The internal test will be over in just one day, and as the top scorer, she will definitely receive a lot of rewards. At this moment, the barrage was still active, and many people liked her ruthless nature. The first one this time should be Shu Yu. I see she has completed many tasks. After all, it's just a game. Although, killing so many people wouldn't make her a psychopath in reality, would she? But it's just a holographic game. Anyway, I remember her face, so when reality comes, I just avoid it. The faces in holographic games must be realistic, and the system will use the player's face to construct the image from the beginning. Shu Yu walked slowly into the residential building with his hands in his pockets. There was no one guarding outside the building, and it was dilapidated without an elevator. Even the surveillance cameras along the way are in a state of disrepair for a long time. How could the place where this doctor lives be so shabby? Shu Yu thought to herself. Arriving at the desired floor, I climbed up to the 5th floor and knocked on the door with my hand raised. She has enough confidence to knock directly on the door. The door opened and there was a woman with long black hair, a cold expression, and a beautiful appearance. Her nose was high and straight, and her pupils were pitch black, adding a touch of indifference to her. Is there anything wrong? He spoke with a hint of indifference. Shu Yu wanted to kill himself with a single blow, and his hand unconsciously pulled out a gun from behind. But he saw the woman in front of him click and say, "It's a bit slow, move faster next time." Before Shu Yu could react, he felt a sudden blackout in front of him, and then he fell to the ground. The audience couldn't see the first angle, and the camera naturally changed to a divine perspective. As she slowly woke up, the strong light stimulated her eyes, making it difficult for her to open them. She raised her hand to block her eyes. "Are you ready for trial?" A cold voice reached her ears, and she saw through her fingers that it was a man with short, golden hair. Shu Yu chuckled and said, "You brought me here for this inexplicable trial. What if I don't accept it?" She obviously didn't take all of this seriously, and by then she only needed to spend a few small props obtained from completing tasks to escape. The man's expression did not change much. "You're a player, I need more information about players," he said with a hint of affirmation. The screen is full of countless small scenes presented, all of which are players who have been caught and interrogated. The barrage boiled again. I'm on my side. What's going on? The official will explain and explain. It must be the official ghost. How long has it been since it started broadcasting? Why have so many people been arrested? It's normal to have a large base of 100,000 people, isn't it? Whole life. I like it. Shu Yu's heart suddenly surged and he forced himself to remain calm, saying, "I don't understand what you're saying. I'm a legitimate citizen." "Is that right?" The man's voice was indifferent, and he raised his optical brain in his hand to take a look at the information. 5th level citizen, there is a record of illegal behavior. I warn you to answer seriously. The man paused for a moment, then curled his lips and smiled. Some of your companions have already recruited. How could it be? With a hint of excitement in her tone, Shu Yu fell for it after asking. So she looked up slightly and said in a loud voice, "Since that's the case, let's make a deal. You agree to one condition, and I'll talk about something about the players." The man didn't speak yet, he just pulled the black leather glove on his left hand with his right hand. A person suddenly walked up from behind him. It's that woman. Shu Yu widened her eyes in surprise. Let me check the interrogation device. This kind of thing doesn't require you, a doctor, to personally intervene. Just call someone from your research institute. Listening to the conversation, Shu Yu still maintained that movement. I don't know what the man said to the woman, but the woman spoke calmly, after killing so many people, we should suffer more. The woman turned her head and her movements were a bit stiff. Her dark and lifeless eyes were fixed on her, and for an instant, a shiver ran down her spine. Many people who watched the live broadcast from Shu Yu's first perspective were about to stand up with sweat on their backs. Who is this female NPC? It's a bit scary. System prompt. All NPCs in this game are controlled by the program and will not kill players. This prompt gave Shu Yu even more confidence and she looked at the man. You haven't answered my question yet. If you don't agree, then I can't guarantee if I will say anything next. The man moved his lips and said, Dr. Chi, what do you think? The lacquered black pupils of the female NPC suddenly showed a murderous intent, but they still had a faint smile. Before he promises you, she paused for a moment, you go die first. Bang, with the sound of gunfire, a blood hole appeared on Shu Yu's forehead, and everyone was caught off guard. Minister Ruewin, let's find another person. She's not suitable for questioning. As the radiance in Shu Yu's eyes gradually dissipated, the first angle lens completely disappeared, and Shu Yu seemed to be truly dead in the game. The person watching the live broadcast in front of the screen stared at the female NPC who had just stood behind the man, with stiff movements, from a divine perspective. She had a calm expression, still holding a pistol in her hand and her eyes lifeless. Before everyone could think much, they realized that the system seemed to be about to crash. Before the live broadcast screen completely disappears. Everyone saw the appearance of the female NPC suddenly appear on the screen. Her eyes were no longer lifeless, but rather seemed to carry a hint of mockery, as if her gaze was piercing through the live broadcast camera, gazing at everyone in front of the outside screen. After the last second, the live broadcast was shut down, and no one could enter. Countless people flooded into the official website. Most people are asking what happened, while a few are asking how the players in the game are doing. The game suddenly crashes, will the players inside be in danger? But I waited for many days without seeing any news. At the same time, the female NPC who shot and killed Shu Yu without command was imprisoned in a federal prison. It was dark and humid here, and she sat on the cold metal floor with her back against walls made of sturdy materials. Bend one leg and place your hand on it. She hid her face in the shadow, with a sense of relief and a hint of excitement. It brought her expression to life a lot. No one knows how excited she was when she received a warning from the depths of her heart that she wanted to kill someone, and an inexplicable killing intent surged in her mind. Her hands seemed to be controlled and unable to move easily. What existence does not want her to kill, especially those who call themselves players? That's why I went to stop her. Yeah, she finally confirmed that even this world. They are all fictional. The female protagonist is unique and beautiful without any CP, and the living men inside are either friends or valuable for use. I quite like the cyberpunk genre, and Mechanical Fall City is the first volume. The introduction and content are a bit different. The introduction is from the player's perspective, and it should be noted that the female protagonist is not pure good or evil. She has scheming, planning, utilizing, and killing skills. She does not have much emotion because she does not have family or friends. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Mechanical Fall 2 Difficult Return. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Mechanical Fall 2 Difficult Return. For many years, Qi Xiu has lived according to a fixed lifestyle pattern, which is more of a certain procedure than a regular one. She guessed these purely because she had been observing the surrounding environment since she had a vague consciousness. She has no family, and she has never found any clues about her family. When asked about many people, they either say they don't know or they just forget. Even to the point of speaking, she seems to exist out of thin air in this world, and the house where she grew up has no trace of her childhood, let alone the traces of her parents. There is nothing to prove her birth and existence. And an old lady from the neighbor always looked at her with that murky gaze. Your parents are both ordinary employees and have passed away young. I have seen them before. Qi Xiu quickly asked, what about the tomb? It's impossible that there isn't even a tomb, right? At this moment, the old lady would wave her hand at Qi Xiu and say, I'm not sure about this either. Ask someone else. The old lady wouldn't say anything else, and every time she sighed, she would enter her own room. The place where Qi Xiu lives is an old residential building, but how did she grow up when she was a child? In her memory, she did not receive help from her neighbors, but as an orphan without care, how did she survive? Qi Xiu herself couldn't explain the way clearly. So even if you become a PhD at the Federal Arms Research Institute. I have money, but I still haven't bought a new house. Because she wants to figure out something. Most people here are numb, yes, after all, the poor need to pay a lot of costs and may not be able to climb up. The money of the rich accounts for about 95% of the world in the entire Federation. A world ruled by chaebol and federal governments, corrupt, filled with oppression and anger. She often feels suffocated, she has killed people, and she always remembers that person. During those days, every night, she would dream of that scene. And the person's gaze before death was still dull and lifeless, like a bottomless black hole, sucking everything in, filled with unknowns and dangers. She didn't want to kill him, but her hands were out of control. This feeling of being unable to control her body, Qi Xiu refused to feel it again. Afterwards, Qi Xiu often had nightmares and woke up, forgetting what she had dreamed of. Scenes flashed before us like fleeting observations of flowers. Now, she finally understands that she was constructed by someone, she doesn't exist, and there is no such thing as freedom. This world is fake, can I escape this world? Qi Xiu sat on the ground of the single cell thinking for a long time, then shook her head. With a self-deprecating smile, my eyes drooped slightly. System binding prompt. Players should immediately bind to the system and undergo real name authentication, otherwise they will be disqualified from the competition. A blue, slightly transparent object suddenly appeared without warning, and she froze. Why did she have this? After thinking for a while, she raised her hand and clicked, confirm real name. After clicking in, a warning quickly popped up, 1. Do not expose your player identity casually, 2. The system will not have any protective measures 3. Pay attention to anyone around you 4. Before the game ends, each player has only one chance, and failure cannot be repeated 5. Your destiny is influenced by both subjective and objective external factors 6. In addition to the Cyberpunk series, there are more routes for players to explore 7. Ultimate goal. To survive, please enter your real name. She looked at it, remembered all the content, and then started drawing her name on the interface, Qi Xiu. Congratulations to player Qi Xiu for successfully binding. Your real name number is 100001. You can modify your forum name. Do you want to modify it? She paused again when she saw this, adding an extra spot for 100,000 players, and then changed Qi Xiu to 820. This was her first conscious day and she needed to record it. However, the personal interface section is still a real name, Qi Xiu. Name. Qi Xiu. Gender. Female identity. Senior PhD from the Federal Arms Research Institute, senior member of the Resistance Army. Points. 32,000 talent. Extremely intelligent. Possessing extremely high intelligence, able to easily solve complex problems, and with fast brain computing speed, acting genius. Possessing extremely high talent for acting, with exceptional acting skills that make it difficult for others to see through and understand your true face skill. Currently unavailable after facing the collapse of her worldview, Qi Xiu accepted these things much better. The points should have been taken away by killing Shu Yu and plundering her points. Talent is something inherent in her nature, and perhaps she can discover something else. As for the skills, she hasn't understood yet. Is it something that every player has? The sound of footsteps coming from the corridor was the sound of mechanical prosthetics landing on the ground. Qi Xiu withdrew her gaze and continued to lower her head. Black straight hair fell down and covered most of her face. It's been 3 days, you can go out now. Since you're in the Federation, you should all follow the organization's arrangements, a tall man said slowly, holding a gun. That person is a guard, raise your hand and enter your fingerprint to open the door for her. The mechanical door was opened, and Qi Xiu quickly stood up and walked out expressionless. Qi Xiu's heart was a bit complicated, not knowing how to face these people. Upon careful consideration, she was just like her but also different. I know. She responded as she walked. After leaving prison, Qi Xiu looked up and saw another annoying rainy day outside. There are many flying vehicles above the traffic road, and neon lights are flashing on both sides of the street. A billboard is hung on a tall building, displaying an advertisement for a popular male celebrity. Most passers-by have undergone a certain degree of mechanical modification, including mechanical prosthetics, artificial eyes, mechanical organs, and internal organs. She has never undergone any transformation, and she also believes she doesn't need it. She doesn't want to do the thing of installing a locator on herself. Walk slowly into the alley where Shu Yu went to kill her, and return to the old residential building. Qi Shouchang breathed a sigh of relief and took his notebook and pen from the bookshelf in the living room. This ordinary black notebook records something she thought was strange from the moment she was conscious. Page after page, filled with notes. She flipped to the latest page, picked up her pen, and wrote, "Since the awakening of consciousness on Federal Day August 20th, 2079, I have been searching for clues. I don't know what I want to find, but now I know, to explore the true truth of this world. Until now, Federal Day August 20th, 2085, it's quite a coincidence. It happened to be 6 years, and I know the story is not over because it's just the beginning. The beginning after my awakening. The urgent task for Qi Xiu now is to break away from the two major organizations, the Federal Weapons Research Institute and the Resistance Army, in an absolute confrontation. I don't know what his thoughts were before. Drive yourself to this dead end. Identity could be discovered by either party at any time, and besides that, the system seems to have crashed. She explored the forum and found that the players inside were fiercely discussing things they couldn't go back to. Most afraid of the poor. What should I do, brothers? I was just about to go home happily, but the system crashed and couldn't get out. 1L, is it really like this? 2L, it's really uncomfortable to stay here. The federal pursuit of players has already captured many people. Previously, they didn't kill anyone due to system manipulation, but now their survival numbers are decreasing every day. 3L, not to mention, I've been hiding for 5 days. Who came to Ayagawa City to save me? 4L replied 3L. Everyone is thinking about self-protection, no one has time to save you. 5L, I am in Ayagawa City, where is your specific location? 6L reply 5L. I really find my life too long. Did you forget the system prompt? 7L, is that thing real? 8L, unreal. Have you ever thought that this system would crash and you wouldn't be able to go back? Don't have any lucky mentality. 9L, those decreasing numbers represent dead players, are they really dead? 10L replying 9L. You can go to die. Then come back and tell me. 11L, Qi Xiu watched the forum and made dumplings. Seeing that most of the players were panicked, she calmly picked up the dumplings and put them into a bowl. I didn't feel anything novel about these comments. As expected. Games can all turn into the real world, so it's not impossible for Qi Xiu to have a player system too. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Mechanical Fall 3 Weapons. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors. Chapter 4. Mechanical Fall for Robbery of Goods. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4 Mechanical Fall for Robbery of Goods. The weapons are ready soon, and there are still 5 hours left until the night falls. They need to wait for the night before taking action. The members of the investigation department changed into casual clothes and hid all their weapons inside their clothes. Qi Xiu has already requested leave from Li Panshan and returned to the residential building, but is not present at the scene. During transportation, there will also be drones and some mechanical mosquitoes monitoring the situation at any time. At the same time, in the wealthy residential area of the Federal Political Center, a person wearing a cloak and wearing men's new leather boots, accompanied by a group of 20.30 people, shuttled through the night. The boundless night is most suitable for hiding traces. What I need is for you to help me grab a batch of goods. My arch-rival is currently manufacturing a new type of product, and the transportation of these parts is the most crucial. After the task is completed, I will give you a large compensation. It's a man's deep voice. The leader wore a mask to cover the lower part of his face, dressed in casual clothes, and frowned upon hearing the words. Pay and deliver on one hand. Of course, if I pay you now, it's hard to guarantee that you won't make a mistake. If you can't grab the goods, I'll run out of money in goods. Nowadays, businessmen are really unwilling to take any losses. The leader of the mercenary group gritted his teeth and said, No, we must pay a certain amount of remuneration before making a different decision. Okay, I'll give you a quarter first, that's enough. The man in the cloak stopped and turned his head. Although he can't see his face must be so ugly that he can't be seen. The leader thought. Extend your hand over. The man swept his finger over the optical brain and integrated a bright light into the leader's optical brain. Set off quickly. If you fail, not to mention the remaining 3/4 of the reward, you won't be able to use the rest of the piece. The leader snorted coldly and then dispersed into the city with 30 brothers. The goal of walking together is too big, gathering at a specific location is the best solution. Watching dozens of people leave, the man stood in place, lifted his brain for a long time, and scanned the balance of his wealth on the brain. The rest is enough for her lifelong living expenses. Qi Xiu doesn't have much demand for a standard of living, just being able to maintain basic food and clothing is enough, and it can be considered that money is like dirt. The investigation department's transportation team here has not yet realized the problem and continues to drive in the original direction. The leader of the transportation team sat in the back seat of the first floating vehicle, with 3 entire floating trucks loaded with new weapons behind him. They tried their best to walk very carefully and not deliberately, even stopping in front of multiple parts stores and moving the cargo boxes, as if they were really transporting parts. When all 3 suspended trucks are about to enter the road leading to the wealthy residential areas of the city. The drones and mechanical mosquitoes surrounding the area have been cleared by people. The leader's light brain emitted blue light, and the message of, "Be careful of ambush," came into view. The leader's pupils suddenly contracted and shouted in his earphones, "All retreat, be careful of those lurking in the urban area." The 3rd suspended truck was about to retreat when suddenly the engine behind it was exploded by a shell, causing it to fall from the air. The 3 cars in front were also blocked on the back road. Subsequently, 10 people rushed out of the residential area and fired at several cars. The investigators pulled out their guns, but couldn't find anyone. The leader's floating car was about to move when they heard a loud bang. The person in the driver's seat was hit on the forehead and died on the spot. The leader quickly sent a distress message to the reconnaissance headquarters, then hid behind his seat and whispered in his ear, "There's a sniper, find his direction." Other people don't have much chance to solve the sniper's problem because once they go out, they face the danger of being shot. Bang is another shot. Another member of the investigation department has died, and only 20 people have been brought out. Suddenly, several have already died. If we continue like this, we will definitely not be able to hold on. The leader's cold sweat was getting worse, and this mission was messed up. He pulled away the team member who had been shot dead from the driver's seat, sat in the driver's seat, turned the steering wheel hard, and pressed the accelerator hard to charge forward. Rushing towards the residential area, the ambush there should be weaker than here. Crazy. Going to the residential area. The 2 floating trucks that could still move wanted to catch up, but were stopped in place by shells from all directions. In a situation where both the size and target are relatively large, coupled with the attacker's focused attention, there is simply no way to find a breakthrough. So soon, all 3 suspended trucks were shot down. Only a few people sitting in the floating car managed to escape. In multiple brief engagements, both sides suffered casualties, but the investigation department was almost completely wiped out before replacing the other 3. After killing the remaining reconnaissance team members, one person opened the door of the suspended truck, jumped up, and opened the cargo box. Found all the parts inside. The leader nodded and picked up his optical brain to send a voice message, I have received the goods. Where are you going to give me your money? Have your people move the cargo box to Warehouse 9, the text sent by the person across from me. The leader scratched his head with his mechanical left hand and said, Number 9 Scrap Warehouse. The Number 9 abandoned warehouse suddenly exploded 3 years ago, destroying everything inside and killing many people. From then on, it was abandoned. I didn't expect this person to have him transport the goods there. He called out to his panting brother behind him, if you can still move, move quickly and move these goods to Warehouse 9. Many people were seriously injured in this operation, and 3 people died. The remaining active ones started moving, and some seriously injured ones stopped bleeding and rested nearby. Obviously, although the Federal Investigation Department was caught off guard, it was not easy to provoke. Before it moved, several transport robots flew over. These robots can be used for transportation. Remember to protect the safety of these robots and goods. I haven't received the money yet, the leader can only endure what the other party is doing. But the leader still spoke in anger, my brothers have died 3 times, add money. Lack of ability is not my concern, but I can give more. Go and put away my goods quickly. The leader gritted his teeth and told himself to remain calm and not easily do anything to the employer. He certainly wouldn't kill the other party, which would be detrimental to future cooperation with other employers. The robot had a large transportation space and fast speed, and soon entered a corner near Warehouse 9. You can go back now, I'll send the remaining money over. The leader checked and returned, good, then left with his brother. Before leaving, he glanced at those transport robots. On the other side, Qi Xiu slept on the bed, holding her optical brain and watching the content on the screen. Meanwhile, listen to the conversation between 2 men in the optical brain. Someone reminded me of an ambush, but I don't know who it is. Let me see. After a short interval, a slightly aged male voice came into my ears. He caught the previous sentence and sighed, I've been eliminated by someone. It seems like someone with superb hacking skills. Qi Xiu listened silently, also pondering the identity of that person. Not long after, she got up from the bed. She needs to go to the Research Institute again and perform a scene to get rid of suspicion regarding the issue with the weapons. After all, she came up with this idea. If the members of the investigation department don't wear casual clothes, the group of mercenaries will probably not go to grab the goods. Coincidentally, at this moment, Eve's artificial intelligence sent her a message, Dr. Qi Xiu, please go to the Research Institute, so she got up, changed her clothes, and walked out the door. The old residential building is quite far from the Research Institute, and it takes half an hour to walk to the floating subway station and take the subway each time. Good evening, Dr. Qi Xiu. As soon as she arrived at the Research Institute, artificial intelligence Eve took the initiative to greet her. She followed Eve's illuminated guidance. Accelerate the pace. Opening the door of the dean's office, Li Panshan looked at her. I'm sorry Dr. Qi, those weapons were stolen by someone. Upon hearing this, Qi Xiu's face instantly carried anger. Obviously, she already knew the news, after all, it was quite a commotion, and the entire urban area was alarmed. Dean Li, I have high hopes for those new weapons, but they were stolen before they could be put to use. Shouldn't I give an explanation? Li Panshan originally placed his fingers crossed on the table, and upon hearing this, he lifted the teacup in his hand and took a sip of the tea. Don't get excited, Dr. Qi, we will retrieve the weapon. Really? How do you find it? Do you know who was injured or where the weapon was placed? After speaking, Qi Xiu clenched her fist and sneered, if you don't even know, what else are you looking for? Li Panshan sighed and said, it will be found, but I trouble you to come this time because there is something else. Qi Xiu hesitated for a moment and said, what? I have submitted your project application and the organization has agreed to let you be responsible for the CH-946 project. As soon as these words were spoken, Qi Xiu was clearly somewhat unexpected. How could it be? Does she owe him Li Panshan's favor and forcefully pull her into his camp? Qi Xiu pulled out a slightly stiff smile and said, "Thank you, Dean. I will work hard, but I won't easily let go of that batch of weapons. If Dean has nothing to do, I'll leave first." Qi Xiu has a cold face all year round, and coupled with her resentment at this moment, it is natural for her to smile stiff. By the way, the person from the investigation department said that before being attacked, they received a prompt from someone else, but couldn't trace the location of that person. They should have immediately destroyed the optical brain after sending the message. The Dean thinks it was me who did it. The people you arranged have been protecting me all along. Where do I have a chance? After speaking, she turned around and left, regardless of whether Li Panshan had spoken or not. Just stepped out of the conference room door. System vulnerability fix, dead broadcast data recovery in progress. Ding. Successful recovery, player, 100001, killed player, 92,568, on Federation August 20th, 7085. Thank you for the recommendation ticket sent by, Hidden Romance, GLGUE Eating Crayfish, Dan Xiaobei Sasakwan. It's about a fixed update of over 2,000 words per chapter per day. Please save the draft and update it by 4,000 words per day after signing the contract. The update time will be set at December 30th, noon in the future. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Mechanical Falls City 5 Broadcast. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Mechanical Falls City 5 broadcast. Her heart was beating fiercely. How could this be reported? At this moment, Qi Xiu's heart was flustered and surprised, but her face remained calm and composed, and her footsteps did not stop. You don't have to think about it, the forum is bound to be in chaos at this time. In the cyber game, where 100,000 players were trapped and had not yet found a way to escape the world, only 100001 truly killed its own kind. Qi Xiu wanted to leave the research institute quickly, but behind him came Li Panshan's slightly gentle voice. The mechanical door of the conference room, which had not yet been completely closed, opened again. Li Panshan's wrinkled face was revealed, and when Qi Xiu heard the sound of the door opening, he didn't take it for granted and was secretly vigilant. Dr. Qi, the current situation requires everyone's strong cooperation, otherwise it would be bad if it were to be dismantled from within. This seems to be in response to Qi Xiu's mention that he sent someone to follow her. Upon hearing this, Qi Xiu paused and said, "Dean, the interior is already a sparse and fragmented scene. What else can it disintegrate?" There was a hint of obvious disappointment in the tone. Li Panshan was taken aback. As Qi Xiu said, there are constant internal conflicts within the federal government, and almost everyone is only focused on gaining more benefits. Moreover, with the growing power of the Chaebol, the position of the federal government is no longer as strong as before. It can be said that the federal government is facing great danger and challenges. Li Panshan didn't speak anymore, just sighed, and Qi Xiu couldn't understand his meaning for the time being. Are you warning her not to act recklessly, or are you trying to recruit her to join his side? Since it's already this time, Qi Xiu will naturally take some action. Even if someone is following her and monitoring her all the time, she will find an opportunity to do it. In summary, Li Panshan is indeed quite cunning and has been fighting her dumbfounding from beginning to end. After thinking for a moment, Qi Xiu walked away without looking back. The Research Institute is located in the central region of the entire federal political center, in a bustling area but with an extremely remote isolation zone. Turning out of the isolation zone, people came and went. Qi Xiu walked on the street, and as soon as she came out, it started raining. Qi Xiu had always disliked the endless rain. Qi Xiu stood at a crossroads and suddenly turned to the nearby large supermarket. I bought some daily necessities, as well as some vegetables and fast food, and carried a small black and red bag, wanting to leave through the underground parking lot passage. Qi Xiu had just entered a shaded corner of the underground parking lot to hide when he heard footsteps coming from behind. A young man's voice was transmitted to the eardrum, "Where are people?" A hint of anger could be heard in his tone, as so many people could easily lose an unarmed person. There were no more people around here, so she should have deliberately thrown them away. What about surveillance? Can the surveillance be tuned in? The young man said again. Another unheard-of voice spoke. She happened to have taken some detours. We should have realized that she had taken many blind spots in surveillance. These surveillance blind spots can avoid the surveillance of Adam and Eve. After the voice finished speaking, there were also bursts of footsteps. The footsteps were a bit chaotic, as if leaving. There should be 4 people, not just the 3 who speak out. Qi Xiu pursed her slightly dry lips and smiled silently, her pitch-black eyes suddenly shining in the shadows. There was an obvious mockery in the expression. On the other side, a young man frowned with a puzzled expression on his face. Using lip language, he asked the man across from him. Why hasn't there been any movement yet? Has she already left the underground parking lot? The man glanced at him and then lowered his head to look at the optical brain before returning to him. The surveillance footage at the exit of the underground parking lot did not capture her figure. The man opened his mouth, and everyone else's eyes flashed with surprise. The underground parking lot is the only exit. If not, how did Qi Xiu leave? The terrain of this underground parking lot is somewhat complex and extremely wide. Suitable for hiding but not for finding people. The man who looked down at the light brain occasionally frowned. After 5 minutes, he raised his hand and rubbed the center of his brow. Noticing the gaze of the other 3, he shook his head. At the same time, Qi Xiu was leaning against the back seat of a car, closing his eyes and recuperating. The optical brain on her wrist has been turned off and some programs have been inputted, enough for both Adam and Eve's artificial intelligence to be unable to locate it. The woman with big waves in the front driver's seat was driving seriously, while a handsome man with long red hair sat in the passenger seat, with a hint of softness between his eyebrows and eyes, but without any feminine aura. The man was wearing a meticulous suit. Legs crossed, one hand lifted to look at the light brain, and the other hand pinched the black top hat and placed it on the knee. Along the way, the man occasionally glanced at his brain and turned his head to look at Qi Xiu in the back seat with his eyes closed. What are you looking for me for this time? Qi Xiu opened her eyes and met the man who had turned her head. The man coughed and said, "Win, the organization is preparing to assign us a task that is of great significance and relates to our big business. We can't be careless." The code name, Win, is something that Qi Xiu really doesn't like. She tapped her slender fingers on her thighs and said, "What task cannot be said on the optical brain? Does the organization not trust me?" Qi Xiu lowered her head, her eyes partially covered by long eyelashes, and the man couldn't see through the emotions in her eyes. The woman driving took a look in the rear view mirror, and the peach blossom eyes smeared with light red eyeshadow were more attractive. "Hongzhu, your red hair seems to be quite eye-catching. Can you tell me the information about the mission?" The red-haired man with the code name Hongzhu snorted coldly, turned his head, and raised his hand to lightly tap the top hat placed on his knee, as if trying to brush off some unsightly dirt. He has known Qi Xiu for almost 5 years, but once they meet, they will be hurt by her and never go back. Without realizing it, Qi Xiu glanced at him with his spare light, and a hint of clarity appeared in his eyes. The beautiful woman with big waves and peach blossom eyes is codenamed Kandao, because her weapon is a long sword with a notch. Qi Xiu's mind was spinning rapidly as she waited for the woman to organize her language. She has seen countless times these people use their abilities to kill, so are these abilities the skills on the system panel? Is the method of acquiring skills killing people? To be verified. During Qi Xiu's contemplation, his thoughts were pulled back by the residual knife. The residual knife slowly spoke, "This mission is related to religious organizations. The organization asked us to find a religious organization stronghold and cooperate with it to jointly fight against the Federation. Collaborating with religious organizations. Not afraid that they will turn around or escape when the time comes. In the end, not only will we not get anything, but will we also be brutally harmed. Collaborating with religious organizations is not a wise move. It will take a long time for Qi Xiu to know, and this statement can be expressed as seeking skin from a tiger. Qi Xiu sneered and couldn't help but curse the leader of the resistance army in her heart. She will not be loyal to the rebels, but instead, she is happy to see things that have caused them losses. After a pause in his words, Kandao said, "Since the organization has issued orders, there must be a reason. We only need to follow the organization's arrangements, and as for other issues, we don't need to consider them." Upon hearing this, Qi Xiu lifted her eyelids. "I am a senior member of the organization, and you are just barely considered an intermediate member. It seems like it's not your turn to teach me a lesson." Qi Xiu's voice was too cold, and the remaining blade froze for a moment, almost forgetting to turn the steering wheel. The suspended vehicle almost deviated from the aerial track and collided with a building. Fortunately, Hongzhu reached out and stabilized himself in time. Hongzhu roared at the broken knife, "Be careful when driving, are you trying to kill us?" Hongzhu is also one of the few senior members, with the same status as Qi Xiu. On the surface, it appears gentle, but the residual knife knows the terror and ferocity hidden under the gentle mask of Hongzhu. So when she heard Hongzhu's words, she just continued driving silently, her eyes fixed on the front. Upon seeing this, Hongzhu stopped talking and casually hugged her arm, turning her head to look out the window. Regardless of the awkward atmosphere, Qi Xiu urged herself, "Keep going. Forget it, I'm breaking my memory. I want to sign a contract, so I'll prepare briefly." End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Mechanical Fallen City 6 Casino. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Mechanical Fallen City 6 Casino. The residual knife was stunned for a while, pressed down impatiently, and moved its lips, saying, "What else is there?" Qi Xiu looked up at the rearview mirror and saw that the residual knife was looking at her through it. Immediately, the residual knife quickly withdrew its gaze. "Can't we just talk about it in this car? Didn't Hongzhu make any detailed plans?" Qi Xiu said, tilting her head. Not waiting for the remaining knife to speak. Qi Xiu's fingers touched the optical brain. "And turn on the shut-down optical brain for a moment and then turn it off urgently." So the federal people received Eve's message. Dr. Qi's optical brain signal was interrupted 1 second after it appeared. There was a rare cunning hidden in Qi Xiu's drooping eyes, but soon her expression was replaced by solemnity. At this moment, Hongzhu held her top hat in her arms and said in a low voice, "It was made at that time. I've known each other for so long, and you know my intelligence. I'll tell you when I get to the underground casino stronghold later." "Really? That's okay, then I'll take a good look." The rebels have several strongholds in the Federal Political Center, including an underground casino not far from the Arms Research Institute. The floating car was parked in a residential alley near the underground casino, and 3 people got off one after another. As soon as they got off, rain fell on their faces. Qi Xiu held a small black and red bag in her hand, looked up at the dark sky, but couldn't see through, and her gaze was partially blocked by the tall skyscrapers. Looking around again, the area illuminated by the neon lights was filled with red, blue, and purple, and in the darkness, there was only a pitch-black darkness, like an abyss. Qi Xiu's idle hand caressed her fingers, as if she had climbed up from a pitch-black bottom. She had been longing for light since 6 years ago, dreaming of breaking free from darkness. However, after seeing the light of the wealthy, Qi Xiu suddenly felt that whether it was darkness or the so-called light, it makes her lose hope for the future. Now, it is possible to completely break away from the control of the federal government and the resistance forces, as well as artificial intelligence. It's her purpose and expectations. Seeing that Qi Xiu was lost in thought, Hongzhu was about to raise his hand and call her, when in the blink of an eye, Qi Xiu's lifeless eyes were already staring at him. Hongzhu was slightly stunned, slightly gloomy, and a smile appeared on her handsome face. "Win, what are you thinking? It's raining almost every day, it's really annoying." As soon as the words fell, Qi Xiu had already stepped forward, and Red Bamboo quickly followed, muttering incessantly. "My underground casino is a great destination in the federal political center, loved by both the rich and the poor." Qi Xiu's face was expressionless, and her heart was also without any waves. Hongzhu became uninteresting after so many years of getting used to her style. "Can you change your temper? Red Bamboo has been killing people like a horse for so many years, just like a smiling tiger. There are not many people around the underground casino, and gamblers are mainly concentrated inside the casino, with low-key external settings. To the outside, it seems like a small building, an ordinary bar to the extreme. There is also a metal plate above the door, and the colored lights on the edge of the metal plate emit a dim light, surrounding the 4 words, chaotic bar." "What's the name of the chaotic bar?" Hongzhu exclaimed, and quickly realized, "This is the Sweet Field Bar." "This is not a good name," said Qi Xiu with a hint of silence on her expressionless face. "This underground casino can be considered as the industry of Hongzhu, and it is usually controlled and operated by Hongzhu. The entire casino is decorated according to the style of Hongzhu's preferences." So Qi Xiu stood at the entrance of the underground casino, looking at the casino, which was covered in red from the outside to the inside, and said in silence, "It's your style. I love red as much as my life. Come, let me take you around my underground casino. You haven't been here since you started researching the 5th new weapon a year ago. This place has undergone earth-shattering changes." Red Bamboo held her arm. Qi Xiu glanced at him, and Hongzhu silently released her hand and smiled. Hongzhu walked ahead in leather shoes, leading the way and showing Qi Xiu around. The broken knife fell silently behind the two of them. Entering the casino, there was a lot of noise, most of which were playing dice to guess size, the banker rolling dice to place bets, as well as leaf cards, pushing pai gao, and so on. These gameplay styles have been around for many years, and wealthy people find them fresh without seeing them. There are wealthy people and ordinary workers from all over the world in the casino, and countless wealthy people have gone bankrupt overnight. There are also many speculators who have nothing to do with white wolves and have a turning point in their fate here. But overall, Hongzhu has made a lot of money using this casino. Qi Xiu's gaze swept over the casino crowd one by one without moving a word. She always felt that there were a few people in this casino who were a bit strange. Since awakening consciousness 6 years ago, she has gradually learned to subconsciously seek benefits and avoid harm. But Qi Xiu's face was calm, and he walked calmly through the casino. All kinds of voices came from his ears, including the cheers of the Daifengshu, salad of assorted fresh vegetables, the cries of regret after he lost his fortune, and the groans of being beaten to death when he wanted to borrow money again. There is even a heroic voice of just throwing $1,000. Hongzhu was ahead, explaining incessantly, regardless of whether Qi Xiu behind him had responded. A few people walked through the gambling area and arrived at the rest area. This underground casino has 4 floors, with the 4th floor hidden deep underground and requiring a password and specific instructions to open the door. Among the other 3 floors, the top floor is a bar disguised as an underground casino, while the 2nd and 3rd floors are the gambling area and rest area, respectively. Passing the rest area, Hongzhu conveniently took a cupcake on the table where dim sum were placed. "Stop and turn to hand it to Qi Xiu, taste it." Qi Xiu's gaze fell on the cupcake and quickly reacted, lifting her hand to take it. When Hongzhu turned his head, he pinched the outer layer of paper, causing it to deform. She has no intention of eating these things. Insert it into the vase on the table closest to the door on the 3rd floor underground. She glanced at the residual knife behind her with her spare light, and saw that it deliberately avoided her gaze, even showing a hint of forced calmness. Qi Xiu even turned her head, stared at the residual knife, and raised an eyebrow at it. At the same time, there was a hint of provocation on his face. The act of Qi Xiu stuffing paper cupcakes into the vase must have been caught by Red Bamboo. But even if Hongzhu didn't see it, the surveillance footage accurately recorded this behavior. But Qi Xiu was not at all embarrassed, as if he had casually thrown away a dirty thing. As for Hongzhu, in Qi Xiu's spare time provoking the remaining sword, he did not speak. It can be considered as default. Qi Xiu breathed a sigh of relief in her heart. After observing Red Bamboo for almost 5 years, it seems that he has already awakened. But the level of awakening is not high. According to his usual style, it is indeed easy for him to swallow his pride in the face of provocation and threats, but he will definitely find opportunities for revenge. It can be said that there is always a struggle, but Hongzhu's repeated forbearance made her somewhat confused. Speaking confidently, if you can tolerate her, you can say that she still has something to use, but what about the others? Has the originally set program been broken, causing a change in Hongzhu's character design? Does he have his own thinking like her? Think of these. Qi Xiu's face showed a rare and obvious smile, which stunned the stopped Red Bamboo. Hongzhu, the cupcake you gave me fell into the vase. Do you think I don't want to eat what you gave me? What, you're afraid I'll poison you? Hongzhu chuckled and slowly spoke out, staring at Qi Xiu's face. Inexplicably, Qi Xiu recognized some meaning in his words, probing and a hint of vague tolerance. Qi Xiu was a bit stunned at this moment. What does tolerance mean? Just a little advance, I will definitely finish writing this book. I am a person with a beginning and an end. At the same time, I would like to thank Super Sweet Sister, Self-Care Beauty 2020, and Ming Yunifei Super Large Boban Sugar, for sending me recommended tickets. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Mechanical Fall City 7 Task. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors. Chapter 8. Mechanical Fall City 8 Discussion. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Mechanical Fall City 8 Discussion. Qi Xiu lowered her head slightly, dual. Purpose. The organization believes that some of these religious organizations' actions collide with us, which is not conducive to our development. This conflict cannot be mediated, so we need to carefully investigate and investigate. According to known sources, these religious organizations are also divided internally, as those believers have different religious beliefs, so we can start investigating their loophole. The skinny old man had already embraced his tattered book and continued, among these believers, there are also those who awaken their powers and are called saints by them, while the more powerful ones call themselves great saints. As he spoke, he opened his book again and quickly flipped the paper, stopping at a page with black and white images. This is a scene diagram of some religious organizations worshipping and praying to their deities. Combined with the description in small characters, it can be vaguely seen how much they value their faith. This is a crazy behavior. Crazy behavior. Qi Xiu's eyes scanned the old man and finally stayed in his eyes. Don't these people also have an inexplicable fanaticism about the transformation of mechanical prosthetics? Qi Xiu lowered her head in confusion and frowned slightly, as she believed it was also a crazy behavior. At this point, Hongzhu had already finished the main content of the task and took a sip of red wine from a red wine glass in his hand, staring at the old man with a smile. Under Qi Xiu's cloak, her face remained expressionless. If it weren't for the sudden mission released by the system, she would only remain indifferent. Her goal is only to obtain freedom, true freedom, rather than being entangled in one vortex after another. I don't have the awakening ability, I'm not afraid I'll die during the investigation process. Hongzhu, who was drinking red wine, almost choked and coughed a few times. He took a few big breaths. This task is indeed dangerous, so you only serve as the overall commander. I will arrange for someone to protect you. If it is not possible, I will personally take action. His eyes rolled around and he swept over the crowd, saying, this personnel allocation is naturally best done in pairs, ensuring both combat effectiveness and a sufficiently large range. Hongzhu took another sip of red wine and paused for a moment. You can team up on your own, but of course Win can't. She needs to come with me. Except for Hongzhu and Qi Xiu, everyone looked at each other and quickly chose a partner. They have already had a consensus in their hearts. Qi Xiu only showed a pair of eyes, looking at the lineup they had assigned. The fierce man, the black python, and the bespectacled man, the blue-haired girl, Yulan, and the curly-haired woman, the remaining are the skinny old man, the old book, and the handsome young man, Black Jade. It looks like they are all psychics. Qi Xiu remained calm on her face, but felt a sense of helplessness in her heart. She had not awakened her abilities, and even if she was smart, she could not defeat those with abilities. It seems that she still needs to pay attention to the awakening of abilities and try to study the skills, items on the personal panel of the system. When do you think the action time should be set? Hongzhu leaned towards Qi Xiu and asked. Has the organization requested an investigation time? Seeing Hongzhu shake her head, Qi Xiu pondered for a moment and said, why don't we schedule it for 10 days? We can take advantage of these days to make sufficient preparations and arrange for some people to gradually enter the slums. Although the slums are mixed with good and bad people, we should also avoid attracting too many people's attention at once. It's similar to what I thought, you really have a good understanding with me. Hongzhu laughed and turned her head. To the other members of this mission, you should have heard me. Win is the overall commander of this mission, and I can be considered the deputy commander. The scheduled time is 10 days later, and within these 10 days, we will arrange the preliminary preparation tasks at any time. Everyone nodded and stood up to leave. Qi Xiu looked coldly at the backs of these people. After their backs disappeared from view, they waited with their legs crossed for a few more minutes. Hongzhu sat there, drinking one glass of red wine and adding another without any impatience. The federal government is preparing to give me full responsibility for the CH-946 project proposal. Qi Xiu extended her hand to the red bamboo. Hongzhu hesitated for a moment, got up, picked up a clean cup from a large wooden box not far away, and came back to pour her wine. Can you drink it? Qi Xiu had some doubts and casually raised her eyebrows, pulling off her mask. Surprisingly, Hongzhu did not directly ask her about the news of CH-946. Just give it a try. Oh okay. Hongzhu's movements were a bit slow and composed, pouring the red wine and handing it to her. After a moment of silence, Hongzhu finally asked, is CH-946 the kind of equipment you're talking about that can block the effects of abilities? Qi Xiu, who took a sip of the red wine, frowned slightly, as if she didn't really like the taste of the wine. Yes, this project was developed by me 4 years ago, but it has not been approved by my superiors. It was not until January 23 this year that I began to apply for full responsibility for the manufacturing of CH-946. Not until recently did it succeed. Red Bamboo seemed to have known for a long time. Seeing Qi Xiu looking at him, he leisurely replied, I guessed. Qi Xiu nodded and shook the red wine glass, seeing that the red wine inside was as bright as diluted blood, which happened to be close to the mouth of the glass but couldn't spill out. Indeed, but due to the long preparation time, assembly alone saved a lot of time. The metal gate has been closed, and surveillance cameras are all around. Even the holographic projection screen in front of the two is closely monitoring, and they are not afraid of others hearing this conversation. The manufacturing of CH-946 this time is extremely important, which has a fatal impact on abilities. Therefore, for many years, various organizations have been actively researching and manufacturing this type of weapon, but the results have been minimal. The importance of Qi Xiu's CH-946 must be emphasized by the federal government. They must prioritize the birth of CH-946 in the federal government, and it can only belong to the federal government. So they will definitely attach importance to the protection and monitoring of Qi Xiu. This is beyond doubt. Hongzhu can also think of this, so the resistance army will do everything possible to protect Qi Xiu's safety and protect her undercover identity, using Qi Xiu as an undercover agent to manipulate CH-946 who remains in the Federation. Then hand over the truly manufactured CH-946 to the rebels. I will go back to consult with my superiors and strengthen your protection. How much does the federal government know about the specific information about CH-946? Red Bamboo's usually gentle face showed a hint of seriousness, and he said. Not all the people in the Weapons Research Institute are mediocre, but there are also a few who can understand the condition of CH-946. I cannot hide this and cannot deceive, otherwise it will arouse suspicion. Now you should mainly focus on manufacturing CH-946. If you have free time, you can also send information and restraint conditions for several new weapons from the Federation. Upon hearing Hongzhu's words, Qi Xiu sneered in her heart that she needed both sides to restrain each other and use the resistance army to weaken the federal control over her, otherwise she wouldn't be so obedient. Qi Xiu placed the wine glass on the table and with a loud bang, interrupted Hongzhu's words. This made Hongzhu a bit confused. Before she could react, Qi Xiu had already stood up, leaving only one sentence. I understand. She put on her mask again and her cloak fluttered. Just walk out like this. Hongzhu was still sitting there, looking at the black top hat placed on the table, and took it with one hand to put on his head. Casually picked up the wine glasses that he and Qi Xiu had drunk and walked out. When Qi Xiu entered the underground casino, she was not wearing a cloak, and she kept shuttling through the crowd without much attention. Because there are many people hiding their identities in underground casinos like this, they don't have the heart to pay attention. Qi Xiu raised her hand and grabbed the cloak and hat, pulling it down to cover her forehead. She could feel someone staring at her in the dark. Just like a venomous snake quietly lurking in the darkness, waiting for its prey to approach and then finding the right moment to strike and kill. I have changed the title of the book. I am about to sign the contract. After signing the contract, I will pay 4,000 yuan per day. I will send 2 chapters at a time. Now, I will pay 1 and 2,000 yuan per day, end of this chapter. Chapter 9. Mechanical Fall 9 Assassination. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 Mechanical Fall 9 Assassination. As soon as I stepped out of the underground casino door, some of the old colored lights above suddenly went out. Qi Xiu didn't pay any attention and kept moving forward. Entering the residential area, it belongs to the border area between the wealthy and the slums, and is not usually peaceful. It is a place where fish and dragons mix together. I feel that those few lines of sight have been staring at me, and Qi Xiu's footsteps are getting faster and faster, plunging into an alley. These alleys are connected in all directions, extending in all directions. Despite the danger of getting lost, Qi Xiu still rushed in without hesitation. Who sent these people? There are many people who want Qi Xiu, but there are also many who want her to die. Qi Xiu has already thrown the worn cloak into the trash can in the black alley. She simply believed that this black cloak would attract a lot of attention because she was being targeted in the underground casino. Losing this cloak may not be meaningful, but at least it can be considered a spiritual comfort. Calm as a late hill, at this moment, under the cover of darkness and the rendering of a quiet atmosphere, there is a tingling sensation on the scalp. The heart is jumping faster and faster without realizing it. Qi Xiu's nails pierced into her palm, and suddenly she breathed a sigh of relief. A bullet shot over, and Qi Xiu dodged to the side as if anticipating in advance. The bullet hit a trash can. The trash cans have all been punched with a big hole. Qi Xiu quickly took out the gun from the pocket on the inside of her coat and glanced in the approximate direction of the bullet. Wait for the next shot. Just as she thought of it, another bullet hit, and Qi Xiu was already on guard against that small building. Shoot at the roof of that small building. Bang! I only vaguely heard a muffled groan of someone being hit. Qi Xiu knew he had hit someone, but perhaps he didn't hit the key and let the person escape. Qi Xiu's luck seems to be particularly good. She dodged for the third time in a row, but her luck didn't last forever. Seeing a gray car ahead, reflecting a faint light in the darkness, Qi Xiu's eyes seemed to sparkle. Just as she was about to pass, she noticed that her legs were incredibly heavy. She lowered her eyes and saw a vine tightly binding her calf, pulling her back. The thorns on this vine were dense and deeply penetrated into Qi Xiu's smooth and white calves. Despite the pain, Qi Xiu twisted her body to avoid bullets while looking for an opportunity to shoot at the vine with a gun. As soon as the bullet broke through the vine, it quickly grew and wanted to make a comeback. Seeing this, Qi Xiu took a few steps forward and leaped. Coincidentally grabbing the gray car, Qi Xiu didn't have time to breathe a sigh of relief. The entire upper body fell backwards again, bending into an incredible shape. As her body was about to fall, a killing intent flashed in Qi Xiu's eyes. After kicking her long legs fiercely, she heard a muffled groan, and Qi Xiu used her strength to jump to the other side of the car. As soon as she landed, two vines trapped her again, and in the blink of an eye, the vines had already climbed to her waist. Qi Xiu couldn't get out of poverty and pulled out a Zhi military knife from his waist. Just as he took out his knife, he was shot by someone hidden in the dark, and Qi Xiu spat out a mouthful of blood. Blood slowly dripped down. She instinctively aimed her pistol at the spot where she had just fired, trying to suppress it with firepower. But just as he fired 2 shots, he got several bullet holes in his arm. But he still endured the excruciating pain without dropping his gun, and the bullets were still firing. The other party probably doesn't have any intention of killing her, they just want to make her lose her combat power. Otherwise, she would have died long ago. When this new type of bullet penetrates the arm, it still leaves some toxic substances in the arm, and Qi Xiu's body begins to tire out. This is not a good situation. Qi Xiu gritted his teeth and tightly grasped the handle of the knife, fiercely cutting through the vine. It took him many strokes to barely escape from the trap. He was covered in scars all over his body and came out like a bloody person. She observed the growth of the vine, picked up her gun and aimed it in one direction, without hesitation pulling the trigger. With a deafening gunshot, the vines that were still growing on the ground stopped growing and quickly withered. Congratulations to the player for obtaining the C.level skill Spiny Vine. Before Qi Xiu had a chance to think, an ominous feeling struck again. The whole body unconsciously enters a state of defense, ready to dodge at any time. Bang 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 bang, she rolled over to a corner of a triangle with a sound. It was formed by the collapse of a wall. She only managed to dodge the last bullet, but was still injured. A bullet was fired into her shoulder, causing blood to continuously gush out. Her back was scratched by one of the bullets, and the last one hit her head, scraping her scalp and causing a large strand of hair to fall off. There are 2 groups of people. These people want her life. Her hair blocked her view in the chaos, and blood flowed from her head onto her face, sticking some hair to her face. Qi Xiu quickly raised her hair and cut it with a knife. There is only one hand left with mobility, and the hair has been cut unevenly. The long hair in her hand was thrown out by her, and in the darkness, the other person thought it was Qi Xiu and quickly fired. The knife that Qi Xiu had previously held had already been inserted back into her waist, and she was shooting into the darkness with a gun in her hand. A faint voice came. Hit, Qi Xiu thought. She was about to take 2 steps back. There was a faint sound of footsteps coming from behind, and she was about to shoot. Click. There are no bullets left. Qi Xiu's shoulder was stabbed by someone, and she drew a knife to chop at the person. That person didn't expect Qi Xiu to react so quickly that he couldn't avoid being hit by Qi Xiu's army knife. There was a sense of reality, but there was no sound. Qi Xiu had good eyesight and could barely see that the person in the darkness was a man. She immediately lifted her knee, which was blocked by the other person while her knife had already been swung. The man anxiously raised his hand to block it. The military knife pierced directly into the man's palm, and under the heavy pressure that Qi Xiu exerted all his strength, it fiercely penetrated the man's chest. Qi Xiu's mind was tense, and under high pressure, a thorny vine the thickness of a thumb suddenly grew out of her palm. Climbing around the man's arm, the handle of the knife was stuck in his hand, and with the sharp spikes of the vines piercing into the flesh and blood, the man took a few sips of cold air. The man's hands trembled incessantly, his face full of ferocity, and he let out a painful "ah." Under the man's hasty resistance, his strength was insufficient, to the point where he was caught by Qi Xiu and hit the crucial area in one fell swoop. The man suddenly vomited blood, and Qi Xiu pulled out his knife. The man fell to the ground, struggled for a while, but still wanted to get up. Seizing the opportunity, he kicked Qi Xiu's almost useless arm. Qi Xiu was pushed back several steps by this strong impact. Her hands were trembling uncontrollably, and the kicked hand had lost consciousness. The military knife slipped from her hand and fell to the ground, her legs showing a somewhat unsupported posture. Qi Xiu's eyes were crimson. Blood covered all over her body made Qi Xiu look particularly miserable. As the man was about to stand up forcefully, Qi Xiu walked over with heavy steps, using her body's strength to fiercely charge the swaying man backwards. The man was already unstable, and Qi Xiu's collision made him fall back again. Qi Xiu kicked a few stones at the opportunity. As soon as the man fell down, he hit the stones directly, and blood rushed out from the back of his head. The man's pain was stuck in his throat. Almost instantly there was no breath left. The military knife was pulled from the man's chest at Qi Xiu's feet, which accelerated his death. Qi Xiu had no more strength and sat on the ground, slowly falling down. The blood on her body dyed the ground red. There were still many people around, and Qi Xiu couldn't escape. She smiled at herself with some self-deprecation, which was also weak. She inwardly mocked herself for being too confident and not placing her hopes on others. Even if she died, she deserved it. Unfortunately, the freedom she had always wanted has not yet been realized. There are many people living in this residential area, but no one is willing to help her. Qi Xiu closed her eyes, and the world seemed to turn into darkness again. Qi Xiu fell from a high place and kept falling, unable to fall to the end. In no time, she seemed to have turned into a drowning person, suffocating and suffocating. There are some foreshadowings ahead, and we will explain them one by one in the future. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Mechanical Fall 10 Discussion. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors.